Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 23rd October 2024. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we will have a comprehensive look on the topic left-wing extremism in India. Then in our second topic, we'll look into various dimensions of antimicrobial resistance, its causes and some possible solutions. Then in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. And we have also incorporated some prelims pointer keeping in mind your upcoming prelims 2025 exam. So please have a look on them also and stay tuned. So our first topic is left-wing extremism in India. The context of this topic is that a lead editorial has appeared in today's The Hindu newspaper highlighting various aspects of left-wing extremism in India. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, left-wing extremism. So before moving further towards our discussion on this topic, let's first cut the clutter for this editorial. This editorial written by Mr. Sasank Ranjan emphasizes on few points. He says that as recently Union Home Minister met 55 people who has been affected by Naxalite violence, and government is providing proper compensation and rehabilitation with various programs that are being run by the central as well as state government. The writer says that there is need for better identification of victims to ensure that proper rehabilitation and compensation are being provided to them. Writer says that it is not necessary the person who has faced the guns of the Naxalite peoples can be only categorized under the victims, but the people who has been affected by some of the acts of state forces, whether that was intentional or unintentional, that they should also be categorized under the victims, and they should be also provided proper support from the government. Also, there are some people who has been displaced from their primitive locations due to this Naxalism. They also needs to be treated as victims and they needs to be provided proper compensation and rehabilitation. There are some people who are still living in Salva Judum camps. They should be also provided proper handholding and support. So since the writer have also used this word Salva Judum, what does this mean? So this Salva Judum, which literally means the peace march or purification hunt. And this was a militia which was specifically mobilized with the intention of addressing the Naxalite violence in some of the regions of the Chhattisgarh, like regions of Bastar. And it consisted of local tribal youths who has been provided support, like arms were given, like training were given by the states. But they were mired with the controversy on the suspicion of large scale human rights violation, and that's why it was disbanded in year 2011 on the directions of Supreme Court of India. Now, a gentle reminder to you people that as in today's The Hindu newspaper, under the section of text and context, there is a article on section 6A of Citizenship Act 1955. So if you want to have a look on that topic, you can refer to the Analyst of 18th October 2024. We have discussed that topic comprehensively on that day's Analyst. Now, why we are looking into this topic so comprehensively? Because in your mains GS3 paper, there has been several questions which has been asked from this particular topic. For example, in year 2018, 2015, questions has appeared from this topic of left-wing extremism. So left-wing extremism, which is also known as Mausam in some parts of the world, and India, it is commonly known with the name Naxalism, and it started from a village named Naxalbari in the state of West Bengal. And when it started with a small dispute between landlord and peasant, and later it culminated into full-scale movement, and it has also grappled various other eastern states like Andhra Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, etc. So what does they want? What is their objective? They want to overthrow the government through armed revolution, and they want to establish the communist state based on Maoist principles, that the private property like factories, etc., they should be owned by the state itself. There should not be any class, there should be a classless society, there should not be any distinction like have and have nots in the society. Also, these Naxalite people resort to various measures like guerrilla warfare. They also disturb the peace and harmony in the society. They also disturb the infrastructure which are being set up by the government like roads, mobile towers, etc. And they also try to run a parallel governance structure like our governments do. If you look into the data from Ministry of Home Affairs, fortunately, the incidents of this Naxalites violence have reduced significantly in past few years. If you look into the data from 2022, there has been 531 incidents of this Naxal violence, where it led to 98 deaths and there were 42 attacks on economic infrastructure. Also, if you look into this data, now it has only left the districts which are affected by the Naxal violence has reduced significantly, and still there are this area of red corridor where some of the districts which are still impacted by this area, this incident of Naxalite violence. So what are the causes of this Naxalism or left-wing extremism? The first important reason is this reason of Jal, Jangal and Jameen. Why? Because earlier most of the people were dependent on the land itself, and these tribal people, these primitive people were also dependent on the land. When after the independence government resorted to land reforms, there has been various measures that were taken for the land reforms, like abolition of Jamindari, like land ceiling laws were made, land consolidation measures were taken, and tenancy reforms were also taken. With regard to the land ceiling, there was a limit that was fixed, that how much amount of land a particular person can hold. But due to large-scale corruption that was involved and bureaucratic apathy, this land ceiling laws were not very effective. And that's why this land reform, which came with the intention of redistribution of land from the people who have major chunk of land to the people who do not have any land or the people who were landless. So this evasion of land ceiling laws, which happened majorly due to large scale corruption, where people have shifted their lands to their relatives, their servants, to evade the land ceiling limit. When this was not successful, these tribal people felt cheated. They thought that it is government which is of no use and they can't help them in getting this land, these resources, and that is one of the reasons that they were motivated to take up the arms. Then the second important reason is the encroachment and occupation of the government and community lands, especially with regard to the mining districts where more and more private investment was going, where the community land which was serving the benefits of overall tribal community, when that was being taken for development, for mining activities, for increasing the private investment, these people also thought that their resources are being taken from them. Then the disruptions of age-old tribal forest relationship, that what was happening, that these tribal people were dependent for the resources that they were taking from the forest, for example timber, fruits, etc. But due to various laws that were being made, that were framed after the independence, that like Forest Right Acts, these laws disturb this age-old relationship that the tribal people have with the forest. Now they can't extract all the resources from the forest itself. There has been several restrictions and limitations that were imposed, and this also made them feel disturbed, and they were also attracted towards this ideology of left-wing extremism. Then various developmental deficits that happened, especially with regard to the poverty, because these districts, for some of the districts like West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh and some parts of Chhattisgarh, etc., are the areas where there is large scale poverty, and that has been also highlighted by recently released multidimensional poverty index report by Niti Aayog. When these people who have large scale poverty, they have less avenues of employment, and that led to large scale unemployment. There were less opportunities that were available for the education, less health opportunities were there. So these are the reasons that also they wanted to extract, they want to take up the resources from the private people, and they wanted that they will run their government, only then they can come out of this poverty. Other issues like infrastructure deficit. Even after the independence, for many years, these people have even not the basic resources reached them. For example, roads, railways, etc. So they were not connected with the overall India. That was also one of the important reasons. Then the lack of education. Because of the less infrastructure availability, because of less private investment, especially in the education health sector, and with the apathy from the government, that government doesn't find itself well competent with regard to the limitation that they have with regard to the financial resources. There were less number of school, hospital, colleges that were available in these regions, and due to this lack of education and awareness, these people have also attracted towards this ideology. Then the poor health facilities also that we have talked about. Various other reasons like social exclusion, the violation of human rights that happened either by the intentional or unintentional ways of state forces, or various measures like Salva Judums, where these tribal militia led to large scale human rights violation, that also further alienated these tribal people. Then abuse of dignity of life, because these people do not have resources, because these people do not have those infrastructure, even their basic necessities like housing, clothing and food was not being fulfilled, and that also led to large scale attraction towards this ideology. Then the disconnect with mainstream society. They were not knowing that what actually the India is all about because of the lack of resources, lack of connectivity. Discontent against the government. Here the people who have actually the leaders of this left-wing extremism, they were always motivating these people against the current government. They were making them feel that this particular government which is there at the central level or state level is serving the interest of elite class only, that is oppressive, that is exploitative, and they cannot serve the benefits to you. And that is also this increasing discontent against the government have further aggravated the situation. Then various governance deficit like the incompetent, ill-trained and poorly motivated public personnel. This bureaucratic apathy, this attitude which was not serving to the benefits of the people, which was not very compassionate towards the needs of the people, that have also further discontented the people, that have also further alienated the people. And the mismanagement and the corruption, these people were feeling that, for example, if mining was happening in that district, at least some parts of the profits that were being generated from the mining, they should be provided to these people through various government schemes so that their quality of life can also improve. However, due to large scale corruption that was involved, this was also not happening. Then the poor implementation of laws and schemes that were made, that were framed by the government to improve the situation of these people, were also not being implemented properly. If you look into this socio-economic fault line data, which has been seen by compiling the data from various ministries, you can see that 88.8% of this population are rural. This 52.5% population are illiterate, and 44.8% live below the poverty line in some of these districts where this large scale left-wing extremism is still present. Also, let's look into now various government initiatives that were taken to comprehensively deal with this issue. The first is National Policy and Action Plan 2015, which is a multi-pronged strategy in the areas of security, development that ensures that rights and entitlements of the local peoples are being provided properly. Then the scheme for modernization of police forces plus fortification of police station in the affected districts so that law and order situation can be ensured properly, so that our security forces do not get impacted, do not get affected by the attacks from the left-wing extremists. Also, assistant to central agencies for left-wing extremism management, schemes like CAPF's Commando Battalion for Resolute Action Cobra, and various other helps have been also given by the Indian Air Force. Also, there is a Samadhan strategy that was evolved for addressing this left-wing extremism properly. For this, S stands for Smart Policing and Leadership, A for aggressive strategy, M for motivation and training, A for actionable intelligence, D for dashboard for development and key performance indicator to ensure to check whether the schemes, the various measures that are being run by the government are being properly implemented, the people are actually getting benefited from that or not. Then H for harnessing technology for development and security, A for action plan for each theater, and N for no access to financing to these Naxalite peoples. We have to cut the financing and various other support that they were getting from the mainstream people. Then surrender cum rehabilitation policy for Naxalites in affected areas, which is focusing on infrastructure creation via additional central assistance scheme, road requirement plan scheme, universal service obligation fund, which is a supported scheme for mobile services to increase the mobile connectivity in these regions, schemes like Roshni skill development, aspirational district program to improve the overall governance structure in these districts, and so that especially the indicators on social various sectors like education, health can be improved properly. Then there are facilities of residential school to children like Pota cabins, Chulo Asman, Nanne Parinde, Tamanna scheme, that is actually focusing on improving the educational indicators and effectively implementing provisions of PISA 1996 on priority by the state government so that the local level governance can be improved, more and more decentralization of governance can happen. Then what should be done? What should be the way forward? The first, as suggested by the editorial, is that there is need for proper exercise of identifying victims, and there should be a spirit of truth and reconciliation and agnostic to the nature of the perpetrators who have carried out the victimization. We need to be more compassionate while identifying the victims to ensure that proper benefits are being provided to them. Also, as far as the rules of victims register experiment are concerned, victims and their families need to be given a benefit of doubt when they tell their stories, as many versions cannot be cross-checked in a tangible manner. When a particular tribal is actually telling his or her story that he has been or she has been impacted, we should believe on their story and we should consider them for incorporation of their names in the victim registers. The said measure shall be an impactful confidence building measure and is bound to expand the support base of the state against the Maoists. Also, we can have targeted security operations using the intelligence to target the left-wing extremist group that will help in minimizing the harm. Also, there is need for rehabilitation and reintegration where we will get help in providing support to former extremists and bring innocent individuals back. Also, we need to empower the local peace ambassadors. We need to identify and support peacemakers, foster communication and encourage community involvement. There is also need for ensuring overall socio-economic development. We need to invest in the social infrastructure, physical infrastructure for creation of more jobs, better educational and health opportunities. Then we also need to ensure that there is ecological and sustainable development that go on in these regions. We need to focus on sustainable development and involvement of the community while going for this development. Also, there is need for comprehensive approach where we need to make this integrated, we need to look through this integrated approach where we are combining the security, development and the community initiatives like WHAM strategy, WHAM, that is winning hearts and minds of the people. We need to ensure that we persuade these people to understand this thing, the reality, that is the government is for their benefit only. This is a democratic country in India which is serving the interest of the people. So until and unless we will win the hearts and minds of these people, it would be very difficult to address or to achieve the target of ending left-wing extremism by 2026 as envisaged by Union Home Minister? A mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic that discuss the reasons for persistence of left-wing extremism in India, elucidate the government's measures to tackle this issue and suggest potential solutions for its eradication. Our second topic is antimicrobial resistance. The context of this topic is that last month UN General Assembly recognized antimicrobial resistance as an urgent global health threat as well as a developmental challenge. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, health. Antimicrobial resistance occurs when bacteria, virus, fungi and parasite no longer respond to the antimicrobial medicines that were being given to treat that particular fungi, bacteria or the disease caused by them. For example, there is a disease and there is an antibiotic that is being used to treat this bacterial infection. When this particular antibiotic has no longer been effective to treat this particular disease, that is a case of antibiotic resistance, where this bacteria has developed resistance for this antibiotic medicine. Antimicrobial resistance is a large set, and under that this antibiotic resistance is a subset. You can say that antibiotic resistance is a subset of antimicrobial resistance. So as we have talked that this mainly happens when bacteria changes and become resistant to antibiotic that is being used to treat the infection that they cause. And how this antibiotic resistance actually happens. That antibiotics are being given which can given to patient and which can result in drug resistant bacteria developing in the gut. If that being this antibiotic which is being given to the patient, when that is not being given by a proper doctor, when the overuse of antibiotic is happening, when ill use of antibiotic is happening, that will lead to development of that drug resistant bacteria in the gut. Then the patient will time and again attend the hospital for some or other disease. And then this drug resistant bacteria will spread to other patients through poor hygiene and unclean facilities that are there in the hospitals. And then this drug resistance bacteria may spread to general public also. In this regard, only ICMR have conducted a survey and they have found that in various hospitals of India, there has been presence of this drug resistance bacteria. There is another way how it can spread. For example, antibiotics are given to food producing animals and crops. Then these animals develop drug resistance bacteria in their gut. And when this drug resistance bacteria reaches human through food, the environment, or water, soil, air, or by direct human-animal conflict, that can also lead to further spread to the general public. As per this data of this WHO, which is very alarming, it says that 7 lakh estimated annual number of deaths due to antibiotic resistant bacteria, and it is predicted to rise to 1 crore by 2050. Some other data says that antibiotic intake in India rises by 30% in a decade, and this report by WHO also highlight the concerns over growing resistance to the drugs. It says that 30% increase in per capita use of antibiotics in the past decade, 47.40 change in the total use between 2010 and 2020, 65% rise in antibiotic consumption between 2000 and 2015 and globally, and there has been 39% rise in the rate of antibiotic consumption in India, and this is data from WHO. So what are the reasons for rising antimicrobial resistance? The first is the overuse of antibiotics. For example, the 75% of Indians in a WHO survey thought that a cold and flu can be treated through antibiotics. Although the cold and flu is not caused by any bacteria, so antibiotic will not be very effective in treating them. Still, there are 75% people who think that they can be treated by antibiotics. Then 58% of respondents knew they should stop taking antibiotics only when they finish the course prescribed. Majority of the people think that it is the only one tablet that is needed for antibiotics and there is no need for a full course of antibiotics that we need to follow. Then the misuse of antibiotics. For example, this data from WHO again that says that India is the largest consumer of antibiotics in the world, though the developed countries have a higher per capita consumption. Between 2005 and 2009, consumption in the country shot up by 40 40%. There are at least 56,524 newborns in India that die each year from bacteria that are resistant to first line antibiotics. Then the self-medication that people do. As per this data from ICMR, that 60% of patients did not complete their prescribed course of antibiotics. And that is the reason that some of the major diseases like tuberculosis, which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, hasn't been eradicated from India because people do not complete their course of antibiotics. Then the contaminated food and water in which these bacteria thrives, for example Salmonella and E. coli bacteria that is present in the poor conditions of the water. This lack of potable water, poor sanitation and hygiene condition further help in thriving of these bacteria. Then the poor infection control practices. There is no proper standard operating procedures. Our healthcare system is not well equipped. They are not well trained. They are not provided proper practices to treat these kind of situations. Then the agricultural use of antibiotics, and because that also happens at a much larger scale, and the use is non-judicious. And that is why this bacteria or the various microbes come from agriculture to food chain, and further it comes in the body of the humans. Inadequate waste management, that is lack of proper sustainable ways to dispose all the waste that is being generated, especially in the urban areas, further aggravates the situation. And the lack of awareness with the people, that when we should use the antibiotics, at what amount we should use. And this case of self-medication, that people think that they are doctors by themselves and they start taking medicines, and they forget that there is a proper degree, there is a proper exam like NEET that needs to be cleared, there is a proper degree like MBBS that is at least needed for basic recommendation or prescriptions of medicines. So these are some of the reasons. Then if we talk about the impact that it is creating, first it is leading to a lot of economic losses. For example, the WHO says that it can lead to global reduction of 2% to 3.5% of GDP by 2050. The world can expect to lose about $100 trillion worth of economic output by 2050 if antimicrobial drug resistance is not tackled properly. It also leads to a lot of health concerns. For example, AMR is estimated to kill more than 7 lakh people globally per year today. And the WHO further says that if that is not addressed, 10 million people are expected to die annually because of drug resistance. Then there is also apprehension that there is a super bug that may get developed because of this antimicrobial resistance, where this bug, which will be very ineffective, most of the antimicrobial drugs or antibiotic drugs that is being used, that would not be effective in tackling that super bug which has developed resistance to majority of the drugs or antibiotic drugs. Also, there is increased risk of nosocomial infections. These are the infections that are hospital acquired infections. Then there is also, this may also lead to increased morbidity and death of people. So what should be done? First, as suggested by this editorial, there is need for the political declaration that was actually happened in UN, that needs to be followed. That editorial says that given this urgency, the political declaration speaks unequally of reducing the estimated 4.95 million human deaths associated with bacterial AMR annually by 10% by 2030. So this political declaration that we have to reduce this antibacterial morbidity by 2030, that needs to be followed. Also, all countries needs to follow proper basic hygiene practices. They need to ensure that proper basic amenities like water, sanitation, etc. are being provided properly. And the minimum requirement of WHO's infection prevention and control measures need to be followed by proper capacity building and handholding of the government. Also, the environmental dimensions of this AMR also needs to be looked, that we need to follow a one health approach where the health of humans, health of animals and health of environment should be taken in an integrated fashion. They should not be treated disenchanted. They should not be treated in a disintegrated fashion. Rather, they should be considered a one entity. We should understand that if there will be a healthy environment, there will be a healthy animal, and if both these are healthy, that will ultimately lead to a healthy human. Also, as a Union Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare reaffirmed India's commitment at UNGA meeting, the updated National Action Plan for AMR 2.0, which has ambitious goals and inter-sector collaboration with the clear monitoring mechanism that needs to be properly followed. Also, some of the best practices from the states like Kerala, which have came with this Operation Amrit, which says that if there is a no prescription, there should not be any antibiotics. This Kerala's Operation Amrit, which prohibits over-the-counter sales of antibiotics without a prescription, should be followed in every state of India. Here, this Kerala have implemented this 2011 H1 rule that prohibits OTC sales of all classes of antibiotics. Kerala's high doctor-patient ratio even in villages may help in encouraging this H1 rule. Over 50 to 70% of antibiotic prescriptions by doctor are deemed unnecessary and irrational. So when there will be better doctor-patient ratio, which is actually not good in other states, first we need to also tackle that issue. If there will be a better doctor-patient ratio, especially in the rural areas where most of the health needs are being tackled by the not trained medical practitioners. So they will only recommend those drugs which are vital. They will not recommend unnecessary drugs. So we have to understand that there is need for proper implementation of these kind of operations in all the states. Apart from that, there is need for strict enforcement of drug regulations, that whatever the different schedules are there, we need to ensure that the scheduled drugs are being given to the patient with proper prescriptions only. We also need to provide proper capacity building and hand-holding to ensure the health infrastructure improves, doctor-patient ratio improves, and the public awareness also improves. And then we also need to increase the research and development, that more and more better and more effective antimicrobial drugs are developed. Then we also need to follow the best practices that we have talked, like in state of Kerala. Also, we can implement this strategic action plan for the state, which is providing technical support from the WHO, and there is also collaboration with Center for Science and Environment. There is also public-private partnership with pharma, etc. So to follow this one health approach, we can have a comprehensive approach where there is more and more collaboration is happening between public and private sector. Also, there is collaboration between civil society organization and non-governmental organization, which can be very instrumental in tackling this awareness issue, especially in the rural areas. A mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic is that discuss the factors contributing to the rise of antimicrobial resistance in India. What are its implications on public health and economy? Then in our simplified section, our first topic is the recently concluded BRICS Summit. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, groupings and agreements involving India and or affecting India's interest and important international institutions. This has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 17. The context is that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Russia for the 16th BRICS Summit with China's President Xi Jinping and South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa are also attending besides the host President Vladimir Putin. And the host city of this summit is Kazan, which is among the Russia's largest and wealthiest cities, deriving its prosperity from a robust petrochemicals and military industry, as well as the fast-growing information technology sector. And in 2009, it was branded as Russia's third capital after Moscow and cultural capital St. Petersburg. Also, Kazan is one of the country's city of the future in sense that it already anticipates some of the significant demographic changes that are contributing to Russia's evolving national identity. And this Kazan is especially relevant to the discussion on Russia's demography, located roughly 900 km to east of Moscow and at the confluence of river Volga and Kazanka. This city have 1.2 million, is the capital of Republic of Tatarstan. the homeland of Tatar people, the second largest ethnic group in country after Russian, and Tatars are predominantly Muslim Turkic ethnic group with their own language and distinct culture. If you look into the location, this is the location of Kazan in the Russia. This particular place can be important for your prelims exam if you talk about the mapping perspective. Now, since we have talked about the BRICS, this stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, and this was coined in 2001 by economist Jim O'Neill, and initially the acronym was BRIC without the South Africa. The objective of this BRICS is to foster economic cooperation among member nations and challenges Western economic dominance. This was expanded in year 2010 after the South Africa also joined. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, UAE and Egypt joined in 2024. These are the latest entrants. The BRICS majorly have an economic focus predicted to dominate the global growth by 2050, offering foreign investment opportunities and strong returns for institutional investors. How many countries are members? As of now, BRICS Plus now consists of 10 emerging economies, representing 45.29% of the global population and generating nearly 27% of the world GDP. Original BRICS have 5 members, and these were the latest entrants as we have discussed. Now there is a BRICS bank which was named New Development Bank later. The objective of this New Development Bank is financing infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS and other emerging economies and developing countries. The headquarters of this New Development Bank is located in Shanghai, China. Membership in this New Development Bank is open to any member of United Nations, and the bank is governed by Board of Governors made up of finance ministers of 5 BRICS countries and a Board of Directors. The voting power within the board is based on each country's share in the bank. With new member can join the New Development Bank, the 5 BRICS countries will retain a minimum of 55% of total share. Their share cannot be reduced beyond this 55%. Our next topic is that IMF retains India's growth projection at 7% for financial year 2025. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, mobilization of resources, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 1. The context of this topic is that IMF maintained its June growth rate projects for India in its latest World Economic Outlook released on Tuesday to kick off the World Bank and IMF annual meeting in Washington. So the first information that this World Economic Outlook is released by this IMF. Now you tell me that this report World Economic Prospects is released by which organization in the comment box. This multilateral lender named IMF expected India to grow at 7% in the current fiscal year ending March 31, 2025 and 6.5% in next fiscal year, that is financial year 25 to 26. But if we talk about the world output, that is expected to grow at 3.2% in 24 as well as 2025. And in this regard, our GDP growth projections are much higher as compared to the global average. If you look into this chart, it shows that from 2023, our growth projections has been declining. That is an area of concern. Also, in the news it says that a global recession has been avoided through disinflationary process. Despite a synchronized tightening of monetary conditions, the IMF said. What was happening? That after the COVID-19 and various other geopolitical situations that happened like Russia-Ukraine war, then Israel-Hamas situation, etc. that emerged, there has been large-scale inflation due to supply chain disruptions that emerged. Also, various supply chain issues, or you can say the climatic reasons, that also led to a lot of food inflation, because that have led to a supply crunch, like drought-like condition or lack of proper rainfall in countries like India, which are mainly monsoon dependent, or untimely rainfall when we are going for harvesting the crop at that particular point of time when there is rainfall that is happening. that is leading to a disruption in ensuring that that particular product can reach to the mandis or ultimate consumers. That we have seen in the recent case of rise of tomato prices, where due to the rainfall in the month of September, it led to lack of proper supply of tomato, and that's why the prices of tomato skyrocketed to almost 100 rupees to 120 rupees per kg. So when this inflation was very high, almost all the central banks of the world have ensured that they resorted to a tight monetary policy. For example, in case of India, there has been increase in repo rate and there has been no decrease in the repo rate even after last few meetings of the Monetary Policy Committee, because RBI in case of India and other central banks want to ensure that there is less liquidity in the economy to ensure that inflation can be tackled properly. So what the particular article says that a global recession is avoided because of this disinflationary process. So what happens? This disinflation majorly refers to decrease in the rate of inflation, and which can ultimately help in stabilizing the economy, and that can help in potentially avoiding the recession, because when inflation slows down, the purchasing power of the people increases. People can afford the goods and services that are available in the market. So when the people would be able to afford, they will demand those goods, and the companies would further increase the production to meet the demand of the customers or the consumers. So that will help in avoiding this case of global recession. So this is what this particular line is saying, that this disinflationary process has actually helped in avoiding this global recession. Also, the IMF recommended a triple policy pivot to respond to relatively mediocre growth rate. They says that first, there is need to moving towards a neutral monetary policy stance, a process underway in many countries, means it should not be affected by the government that is there in place. Second is the need to build fiscal buffers after years of loose fiscal policy. Everyone should ensure that there is proper mechanism, proper provisions are there to deal with any kind of market fluctuations. Also, the structural reforms to increase the growth and productivity, coping with the aging population as well as younger people looking for opportunities in some parts of the world, that will help in tackling the climate transition, and it will help in building and improving the resilience of the economy. If you talk about here in the prelims booster section, the IMF, which is a UN specialized agency, it was founded by the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, and the objectives of this is supporting global monetary cooperation, securing financial stability, facilitating international trade, promoting high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reducing poverty. There are various reports that are published by the IMF: World Economic Outlook, Global Financial Stability Report, Fiscal Monitor, and Regional Economic Outlook. There is a prelims question that was asked in 2016, that Global Financial Stability Report is prepared by. Please comment the answer of this particular question in the comment box. Our next topic is this cloud chamber under the mission Mausam. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your prelims, current events of national and international importance, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 17. The context is that government under mission Mausam, which was launched last month, aimed to not just improve the weather forecasting but also manage certain weather events, including enhancing or suppressing the phenomena such as rainfall, hail and fog to actually cater the local needs. But under this, they are trying to develop a cloud chamber. A cloud chamber resembles a closed cylindrical or tubular drum inside which water vapor, aerosols, etc. are injected under the desired humidity and temperature conditions. A cloud can develop inside this chamber, and this facility will allow scientists to study the seed particles that form the cloud droplets or ice particles. Many countries have basic cloud chambers with limited functionalities to perform specific studies. With Mission Mausam, India is building a cloud chamber with convection properties as required to study Indian monsoon clouds. Understanding cloud physics involves the study of cloud behavior, etc. So what is happening? Understand that you would have heard about the cloud seeding process, where aerosol are injected in the clouds to ensure that proper nuclei is being formed in those areas that can actually help in rainfall in those areas. with the development of these kind of chambers, the scientist will have the flexibility to tailor the physical and atmospheric parameters to suit the environmental requirement that influence overall weather phenomena in that particular areas. Also, how this weather can be modified. In India, the experiments have been done on cloud seeding, which helps generating rain under the cloud aerosol interaction and precipitation enhancement experiment program. Trials were done over a limited geographical area along the rain shadow regions of Maharashtra Solapur district from 2016 to 2018. Such regions witness little rainfall as they lie along the mountainside facing away from the moisture laden winds. In these areas, these developments of cloud chambers can help in ensuring that localized rainfall can be done and the needs of the agriculture as well as the overall economy can be tackled. If you talk about the prelims pointers, what is Mission Mausam, which is an initiative to tremendously boost India's weather and climate related science, research and services. 3 institute of Ministry of Earth Sciences named Indian Meteorological Department, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology and National Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting will primarily implement Mission Mausam. Our next topic is this Biodiversity Conference of Parties, and this particular topic is with regard to a GS paper 3, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 17. Context is that ahead of annual climate change meeting scheduled in Baku, Azerbaijan this year from November 11, countries are currently assembled in the Colombian city of Cali for the UN Biodiversity Conference that takes place every year. This Conference of Biological Diversity (CBD) came out of same 1992 Rio Earth Summit that gave rise to UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. There were 3 bodies which were formed out of this 1992 Earth Summit. One was this UNFCCC, then UNCBD, and there was also one body for the land degradation. The main aim was this CBD was to promote, protect global biodiversity, restore natural ecosystem and ensure that benefits from the world's biological resources are equitably distributed. This year's meeting, 16th Conference of Party to the CBD or COP, is first after a landmark agreement on biodiversity was finalized 2 years ago, and this agreement, which is also known as Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, that was concluded at COP15 in Montreal in 2022, lay down 4 goals and 23 targets to be achieved collectively by 2030, and they are also called as 30 into 30 targets. That is a commitment to put at least 30% of world's land and ocean, especially the biodiversity rich areas, under the conservation by 30. So few things that are very important for your prelims is this Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and this 30 into 30 target. Also, if you look into that, why it is important to ensure that we follow this 30 into 30 target is because of the extent of threat to natural ecosystem. That 1 million is the number of species that are at risk of extinction in the next few decades. 75% of world's land is significantly altered. 400 million hectares of forest were lost between 1990 and 2020. And about 10 million hectares of forest are being lost every year annually. 1.44% only of the high seas is demarcated as protected areas. So these are some of the data which emphasizes on the point that it is very important to ensure that we achieve these targets. Also, one of the main objective of this COP16 is to expedite the process of this 30 into 30 target, which was provided under this framework, and each country has to prepare and submit action plans to halt and reverse the biodiversity loss within their jurisdiction. These national biodiversity strategies and action plans are similar to the nationally determined contributions or NDCs that countries have to submit under the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change, mentioning their time-bound goals and actions being taken. So similarly, the countries have to submit their NDCs, they have to also submit their NBSAPs. That what they have done till now and to what extent, to what time they will achieve their biodiversity targets. Also, there is a High Seas Treaty, also known as the Agreement on Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, which was also finalized last year as a separate international agreement to maintain the ecological health of oceans, was a major step forward in meeting of this 30 into 30 target. And if you talk about one of the major objective of this High Seas Treaty is to demarcate protected areas in biodiversity rich part of ocean, just like National Park of Wildlife Reserves on land, where human activities can be regulated as well as restricted to protect the marine life as well as the marine ecosystem under this High Seas Treaty. Also, it is focusing on promoting sharing of the genetic resources, that is benefits from the exploration of genetic resources in ocean outside the national boundaries of the countries are equitably distributed among all. Also, if we talk about the question of finance, that is that in the climate change negotiations, there is issues of climate change finance have came and it has been tackled by various measures. Finance is also crucial for this CBD, and one of the 23 goals of this Cumming monetary framework is to mobilize at least $200 billion per year by year 2030 from all resources for spending on biodiversity conservation, and out of this, developed countries must provide at least 20 billion every year to developing countries to support their biodiversity related work. If you talk about the prelims pointer, this United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, which was also called as Rio Earth Summit, that happened in 1992. It led to, if you talk about major outcomes, Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, Convention on Biological Diversity, Statement on Forest Principles, Rio Declaration, as well as Agenda 21 for the Sustainable Development. Our last topic is India's fourth nuclear submarine. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, Indigenization of Technology and Defense Technology, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 10. The context is that India's fourth nuclear powered ballistic missile submarine SSBN, referred to S4, was launched into water at the shipbuilding center in Visakhapatnam last week. And the official sources have confirmed this. This submarine is bigger and more capable than the first INS Arihant, which was S2. India currently has two SSBNs operational. INS Arihant was quietly commissioned into service in August 2016. The second was INS Arighat S3 that was commissioned in end August, and the third SSBN, that is Aridhman, also known as S4, is currently under developmental stage. The INS Arihant, which was the first nuclear submarine, is presently armed with 750 km range K-15 SLBM, that is Submarine Launch Ballistic Missile, and this S4 carries the advanced 3500 km range SLBM K4. You can think of that how many countries can be covered under this S4 when it have increased its strength to almost 3500 km, means we can launch our submarine ballistic missile to up to 3500 km. And K4 will be mainstay of India's undersea nuclear deterrence, as it provides standoff capability to launch nuclear weapon while submerged in Indian water till a 5000 km range SLBM is developed as well as fielded. If we talk about India's nuclear triad, we have land-based nuclear forces, for example intercontinental ballistic missiles like Agni series. Then we have sea-based nuclear forces, that is nuclear powered ballistic missile submarines. Then if we talk about air-based nuclear forces, there are nuclear capable aircraft like Rafale, etc., which can be equipped with some of the nuclear equipments. This was all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.